I adjusted my simple blue maintenance uniform in the mirror of my penthouse bathroom, making sure it looked appropriately worn. The irony wasn't lost on me, a billionaire deliberately dressing like a janitor. But I had my reasons. My name is Alexander Chen, though my family knows me as just Alex. To the business world, I'm A.C. Morrison, the reclusive founder and CEO of Morrison Technologies, a cybersecurity company worth over $50 million. But to my family, I'm just the disappointment who works as a maintenance man at some office building downtown. The annual family reunion was today, held at my uncle's mansion in the wealthy part of Boston. As I pulled up in my old Honda Civic, not the Aston Martin sitting in my garage, I could already see the expensive cars lined up in the circular driveway. Bentleys, Mercedes, BMWs, my family's favorite way of showing off their success. I parked at the far end of the driveway, next to the catering vans. The car was part of my cover, just like the carefully maintained fiction that I worked as a janitor. My family had always seen me as a failure, and over the years, I'd found it easier to let them believe that than to correct them. Walking up to the grand entrance, I caught my reflection in one of the massive windows. My carefully crafted image stared back at me, worn work boots, faded jeans, the blue uniform shirt with a generic maintenance company logo. To complete the look, I'd left my designer watch at home and wore a cheap digital timepiece instead. "Oh look, Alex finally made it," my cousin William's voice carried from the doorway, dripping with mock sympathy. He stood there in his tailored suit, champagne glass in hand, every inch the successful investment banker he never tired of reminding everyone he was. "Hey Will," I said quietly, stepping inside. The foyer was packed with relatives, all dressed in their finest, all eager to show off their latest achievements. My mother spotted me from across the room, her face immediately falling into that familiar expression of disappointment. "Alexander," she sighed, air kissing my cheek, "couldn't you at least have changed out of your work clothes? This is a family gathering, not a maintenance call." I forced a smile. "Sorry, Mom, came straight from work. You know how it is." She didn't, of course. None of them did. They had no idea that the building where they thought I cleaned floors and fixed leaky faucets was actually the headquarters of Morrison Technologies, my company. The same company that was about to acquire the struggling tech firm my uncle had bet his fortune on. Still working as a janitor, huh? My younger sister Lisa appeared beside me, designer dress sparkling under the crystal chandelier. "You know, I could probably get you an interview for an entry-level position at my firm. Something more respectable." Lisa worked as a mid-level manager at a software company, one that was secretly a subsidiary of Morrison Technologies. She had no idea her big brother was technically her boss's boss's boss. "I'm good, Lisa," I said mildly. "The work's steady, and I like keeping things simple." She shook her head, diamond earrings catching the light. "That's your problem, Alex. No ambition. While the rest of us were getting advanced degrees and building careers, you were what? Fixing toilets?" If she only knew. While they were racking up student debt getting their MBAs, I've been building Morrison Technologies from the ground up. Started in my garage with nothing but a laptop and an idea about revolutionizing cybersecurity. Now we were the leading name in the industry with offices in 12 countries. But they'd never known about any of it. They'd been too busy looking down their noses at my job to notice that I was never around during major company announcements, or that I somehow managed to live in a nice apartment despite my supposed janitor's salary. Uncle Philip's booming voice cut through my thoughts. "Everyone, gather round. I have an announcement to make." The crowd shifted, forming a loose circle around my uncle. He stood on the bottom step of the grand staircase, commanding attention in his expensive suit. Behind him, my Aunt Margaret beamed with practiced pride. "As you all know," he began, "Digital Front has faced some challenges lately, but I'm pleased to announce that we're in talks with a major tech company for a potential acquisition. Once the deal goes through, we'll be stronger than ever." Applause rippled through the crowd. Digital Front was my uncle's pride and joy, a software company he'd built over 20 years. What he didn't mention was that the company was hemorrhaging money, their technology hopelessly outdated. The only reason any company would want to acquire them was for their client list. And tomorrow morning, that's exactly what Morrison Technologies was going to do. The papers were already drawn up, the deal ready to be signed. Uncle Philip just didn't know who was really buying his company. To success. William raised his glass. And to family. Well, most of us anyway. He smirked in my direction. I lifted my plastic cup of soda. They hadn't even offered me champagne, and smiled back. Let them joke. Tomorrow would change everything. Speaking of success, my mother chimed in. Lisa just got another promotion. Senior project manager now. And William's firm handled that merger with Goldman last month. We're so blessed to have such accomplished children. She paused, glancing at me. Well, most of us are. The familiar sting of her words washed over me, but it didn't hurt like it used to. I learned long ago that their approval meant nothing. Success wasn't about impressing family at reunions, it was about building something meaningful. And how's the maintenance business, Alex? Uncle Philip asked, his tone dripping with condescension. Still enjoying the simple life. Before I could answer, William jumped in. Oh, had you heard? Alex got a promotion last month. He's head janitor now. Laughter rippled through the crowd. I saw my mother wince, my father studiously examine his drink. Only my grandmother, sitting quietly in the corner, didn't laugh. She just watched me with those knowing eyes that always made me wonder if she figured out my secret. Actually, I said quietly, there have been some changes at work. Big ones. What, did they finally give you your own mop? Lisa quipped, earning more laughter. If they only knew. The changes involved Morrison Technologies preparing to acquire Digital Front for pennies on the dollar. Uncle Philip's company was worth barely a fraction of what it had been 5 years ago. He'd been too proud to adapt, too sure of his old methods to see the industry changing around him. Something like that, I murmured, checking my cheap watch. Speaking of work, I should probably go. Early start tomorrow. Of course, Uncle Philip nodded magnanimously. Big day of cleaning toilets ahead. But hey, someone's got to do it, right? More laughter. I turned to leave, but my mother's voice stopped me. Alex, wait. She hurried over, pressing a folded check into my hand. Here. A little something to help out. I know things must be tight on your salary. I looked at the check. $500. A drop in the ocean compared to what I'd spend on lunch tomorrow while signing the acquisition papers. But I knew refusing it would raise questions. Thanks, Mom, I said softly, tucking it into my pocket. I'd donate it to the building's actual maintenance staff tomorrow. As I walked back to my beater car, I heard William's voice carry across the driveway. God, can you imagine? 35 years old and working as a janitor? What a waste. I smiled to myself as I drove away. Let them laugh. Let them mock. In less than 24 hours, they'd learn who really owned not just Uncle Philip's company, but half the buildings in the business district, including the prestigious office where William's investment firm rented space. Back in my penthouse, I shed the maintenance uniform and pulled up the latest acquisition papers on my laptop. Everything was in order for tomorrow's meeting. Uncle Philip would finally meet the mysterious A.C. Morrison, though he wouldn't recognize his own nephew behind the success he'd mocked for so long. I poured myself a glass of 30-year-old scotch and walked out onto my private terrace, looking out over the city I'd helped shape. Somewhere down there, my family was probably still laughing about poor Alex the janitor, not realizing that their supposed failure owned most of the skyline they were admiring. My phone buzzed. A text from Lisa. Hey bro, seriously consider that entry-level position. Can't have my big brother scrubbing floors forever. I took another sip of scotch, remembering the merger documents waiting in my office. Documents that would soon reveal exactly who owned not just Uncle Philip's company, but the firm Lisa worked for as well. Tomorrow couldn't come soon enough. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about proving people wrong. It's about watching them realize they've been wrong all along. But as I stood there, overlooking my empire, I couldn't help but wonder, once they knew the truth, would anything really change? Would they finally see me for who I was, or would they just switch from mocking my failure to resenting my success? Either way, tomorrow would change everything. The janitor they'd looked down on for so long was about to show them exactly who really kept things clean in this city. And something told me they wouldn't be lacking anymore. The morning of the acquisition, I stood in my private elevator, watching floor numbers climb as I ascended to the penthouse offices of Morrison Technologies. Gone was the maintenance uniform, replaced by a Tom Ford suit that cost more than what my family thought I made in a year. Sometimes the best disguise is simply being yourself. My phone buzzed. Another text from Lisa. Good luck with your big day at work. Try not to flood any bathrooms. I smiled. slipping the phone back into my pocket. In 2 hours, she'd understand exactly what kind of day this was going to be. The elevator doors opened directly into my office suite. My assistant, Sarah, was already waiting with my morning briefing. She was one of the few people who knew both sides of my life, and I could see the anticipation in her eyes. "The digital front team is already here," she reported, handing me a leather portfolio. "Your uncle has been complaining about the wait. He's demanding to know why AC Morrison is running late to his own meeting. Is the whole family here?" Sarah nodded. "Just as you predicted. Your uncle brought everyone, your parents, Lisa, William, even your Aunt Margaret. They're all eager to meet the mysterious buyer." Perfect. I'd orchestrated this carefully, ensuring the meeting would be scheduled the morning after the family reunion. I wanted them all there to witness what was about to happen. "How's Uncle Philip's mood?" I asked, reviewing the final acquisition papers. "Nervous, but hiding it behind bluster. He's been bragging to anyone who'll listen about how he's saving the company through this merger." Sarah paused. "He has no idea it's less a merger and more of a takeover, does he?" I shook my head. "He's about to find out exactly what his company's really worth and who's really been running the city's tech industry." The walk to the conference room felt surreal. Through the glass walls, I could see my family seated around the massive table, Uncle Philip at the head, trying to look confident despite the sweat on his brow. My parents, there to support their brother's big moment. Lisa and William, probably hoping to network with whoever this mysterious AC Morrison was. I took a deep breath, straightened my tie, and nodded to Sarah. She opened the conference room doors. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced formally, "Mr. AC Morrison." The room fell silent as I walked in. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They were all staring at me, their brains struggling to reconcile the janitor from yesterday with the man in the impeccable suit walking into the room like he owned it. Because of course I did. "Alex?" Lisa's voice cracked. "What are you doing here? This is a private meeting. You can't just—" Actually, I cut her off smoothly, taking my seat at the opposite end of the table from Uncle Philip. "I can. Welcome to Morrison Technologies, my company." The silence that followed was deafening. William's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. My mother gripped the arms of her chair so hard her knuckles turned white. Uncle Philip found his voice first. "This is absurd. Some kind of joke. Where is Mr. Morrison? The real Mr. Morrison?" I smiled, pulling out the acquisition papers. "You're looking at him. Alexander Chen Morrison. Though I typically go by AC Morrison in business circles. Shall we begin reviewing the terms of the acquisition?" "You?" William sputtered. You're the owner of Morrison Technologies, the company that's been buying up half the tech firms in the city." "The very same." I turned to my father, whose face had gone ashen. "Remember when you told me I was wasting my time playing with computers instead of getting a real job? Turns out those computers built something pretty real after all." My mother's voice trembled. But you're a janitor. We saw you yesterday in your uniform." "A uniform, yes, but not for the job you thought." I gestured around the room. "I own this building, and the one where William's firm rents space, and the one where Lisa's company operates. Speaking of which," I turned to my sister. "How's that mid-level management position working out? Enjoying your work at Subtech Solutions?" Lisa's face drained of color as realization hit her. "Subtech? We're a subsidiary of Morrison Technologies. You're my boss." "Technically, I'm your boss's boss's boss. But yes." Uncle Philip slammed his hand on the table. "Enough. This is ridiculous. You expect us to believe that you, the family failure, secretly built a multi-million-dollar company? Where would you even get the startup capital?" I pulled up some figures on the conference room's main screen. "Remember that app I developed in college? The one you all mocked as a waste of time? Google bought it. Quietly. For $8 million. That was my seed money. Everything since then has been careful investment, strategic acquisition, and hard work." The room erupted in chaos. William was frantically searching for Morrison Technologies on his phone. My mother was close to tears, and Lisa looked like she might faint. "But why?" my father finally asked. "Why pretend to be a janitor? Why let us think you were nothing?" The question hung in the air, heavy with years of judgment and dismissal. I leaned back in my chair, considering my answer carefully. Because you taught me something valuable, I said finally. You taught me that people show their true colors when they think you're beneath them. Every mock, every dismissal, every condescending offer of help showed me exactly who you all were. And more importantly, showed me who I didn't want to be. I stood up, buttoning my jacket. Now, shall we discuss the terms of the acquisition? The offer is significantly less than what you're hoping for, Uncle Philip. Digital Front's technology is outdated, your client base is shrinking, and your management structure is inefficient. But I'm willing to retain most of your employees, with some changes in leadership, of course. Uncle Philip's face had turned an interesting shade of purple. You planned this. All of it. Actually, you did this to yourself. Your refusal to innovate, your arrogance in thinking you knew better than the young tech crowd, that's what devalued your company. I'm just here to pick up the pieces. I turned to William. By the way, your investment firm's lease is up for renewal next month. I'm raising the rates, significantly, though I suppose you can afford it, given that merger with Goldman you were bragging about yesterday. William slumped in his chair, looking like he might be sick. Lisa, I continued, there's going to be some restructuring at Subtech. Your position is safe, but you might want to reconsider that entry-level job offer you were so keen on giving me. My mother finally found her voice. The check I gave you yesterday, will be donated to the actual maintenance staff of this building. They're the ones who keep this place running while everyone else is looking down their noses at them. I nodded to Sarah, who began distributing folders to everyone. These documents outline the terms of the acquisition. You'll find them fair, if not generous. You have 1 hour to review them with your lawyers. Though I should mention that most of the top firms in the city are already on Morrison Technologies' retainer. As they sat there, shell-shocked, staring at the documents that would transfer control of Uncle Philip's life's work to the nephew they'd dismissed for so long, I walked to the door. But before leaving, I turned back one last time. Oh, and Mom, next time you want to help out your struggling son, try asking him what he actually needs instead of assuming you know better. You might be surprised by the answer. The rest of the day passed in a blur of signatures, legal discussions, and shocked silences. By evening, Digital Front was officially part of Morrison Technologies, and my family's perception of reality had been completely shattered. As I sat in my office that night, watching the city lights twinkle below, I received a text from my grandmother. I always knew you were building something special. They saw the uniform, but I saw you. Proud of you, grandson. I smiled. Of course she had known. She was the only one who ever really looked past the surface. My phone buzzed again. Lisa. I don't even know what to say. All this time, why didn't you tell us? I typed back, would you have believed me? Or would you have just tried to take control of this too? No response. She knew I was right. Another message from William. That lease increase, we need to talk. Delete. Then one from my mother. I'm so sorry. For everything. Can we meet? Please. I stared at her message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to let them all stew in the realization of how they treated me. But another part remembered something my grandmother once told me. Success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. Finally, I replied, Sunday dinner. My place. Bring the family. It's time you all saw how the other half lives. I set the phone down and walked to my private elevator. The maintenance uniform still hung there, a reminder of the lesson I'd learned long ago. True worth isn't in what you appear to be, but in what you build when no one's watching. Tomorrow, I go back to being A.C. Morrison, the tech mogul who changed the city's digital landscape. But for now, I had one last stop to make. I changed into the uniform one last time and headed to the building's maintenance office. The staff there, the real maintenance workers, looked up in surprise as I walked in. Mr. Morrison, what are you? I held up my hand, pulling out my mother's check and adding several zeros to it. This is for the team, for keeping this place running while everyone else was too busy looking down to see who was really holding things up. They stared at the check in shock as I turned to leave. At the door, I paused. Oh, and one more thing. Those uniforms. Keep them clean. You never know who might really be wearing one. Sometimes the best way to clean house isn't with a mop and bucket. Sometimes it's by showing people that the person they thought was beneath them was actually the one holding up the floor they stood on all along. And sometimes, just sometimes, the best revenge isn't in proving people wrong. It's in letting them realize they've been wrong all along. As for me, I've got a Sunday dinner to plan. Something tells me my family will be a lot more interested in my simple life now. Funny how perspective changes when you finally see the whole picture.